I'm trying to condense what I want to talk about in two videos. In the first video, I will be talking about the concept called water. What does water do in a watercolor painting? And in the second video, I'll talk about how to use this concept to achieve what is called value. Okay, so water and value, and today we are going to cover water. So first of all, you know that you use a brush and you use the brush to take some paint and apply on paper, and then you want to achieve whatever you want to achieve on the paper. Um, the difficulty is that we all start painting with oil pastels or crayons or sketch pens, and you expect a color to fall on the paper and you apply it, and there is no difference in what you expected versus what you get, whereas in water you get something slightly different. So what I'm going to do is to show you why there is a difference and how the difference can actually be useful. Okay. To understand this, you have to understand that watercolor is basically application of the paint by diluting it with water. So in a sketch pen or in wax crayons, you have a lighter green and a darker green, whereas in watercolor, you will get the lighter green and the dark green all from the same green. Okay, this is the most important idea. So I have a green here. This is a light green, right? And I take away the water in my brush. I take the green directly from my palette and I apply it. I get a darker green. Okay, these are two different colors actually. So the white of the paper acts like the white that goes into the paint to dilute it. Okay, this is the most important idea. This is the main reason why you struggle with your watercolor compared to any other painting. So water, understanding how much water is in your paint is most important to get different shades of the same color. Okay, and you do not have control on water yourself, so sometimes you have to wait and sometimes you have to measure how much is there. So I'm going to try to help how you can measure and teach you when to wait. This is what I'll try to do in this video. Okay, so let's start by trying to paint a tree. So I'll just roughly outline the tree with some of this dirty muddy color that I have here. So let's say I want to draw a tree that, I don't know, is of some shape like that. Okay, and here comes the bark of the tree, the stem of the tree, and then you have like a ground, and let's say there is like sun shining from this end, and then you get a shadow of the tree on this end. That's a rather realistic tree that I'm trying to paint. All right. So I can actually use this green. So what I would do first is to decide that I would have some sort of light shades here, dark shades in here, and some dark spots here, and the dark spots have to look realistically, right? So for this video, I'm using paper that is 100% cotton paper, which has a rough texture. Okay, and it is important to note that paper is very important in watercolor. Good quality paper is the most important. The second perhaps is the brush you use, and the third maybe the actual colors that you use. Okay, this is what my understanding has been so far. Okay, so how do I apply a light paint, light coat of green? Okay, I start with this light color here. So I take this paint. What I do is this, I use the white of the palette to see how thick is the paint, how concentrated the paint is. But it is very important to have enough paint in the palette. Okay, so I want a lighter green. So what I would do is I'll take a lot of water from my cup and I put it into the palette. So this is a very light puddle of water into which I have mixed in my green. So this is a very light paint. It looks very bright on paper, but on the camera, but if I spread it out, you see that it is actually a very light application. Okay, and there is enough water to fill this entire tree. This is also very important. So one strategy is to mix water in here and then add paint to make sure that you have enough paint so that all of this paint will be of the same shade of green. This is the most important idea. All of the paint that I apply, wherever I want this green to be there, I want it to be of the same consistency, that is the same concentration with respect to water. And that is why the mixing of enough paint is very important. So I have mixed all of this. Now I can apply it everywhere. Okay, I'm going to apply it everywhere, and I'm going to tell you a trick that will make your paint application look much better. That is to actually lift my sheet. You see what happens when I lift my sheet is the water drains down and it collects into a bead at the bottom. This makes sure the water is not settling in puddles and making the application of colors uneven. This has simply made the colors very even, right? So I can readily put something uh, under my paper like that, and I move the sponge away. The sponge is very important because I need to collect the wetness often. Sorry, I have put this brush here which I didn't notice. Yeah. Okay, so the colors have collected here. So I can always remove the colors by using a very damp, a dry brush almost, and just dip it into this water, and that sort of sucks up all this extra water. If I don't suck up this extra water, it will lead to something called a rundown, which we will look in a more advanced class, how to control rundowns, etc. So this gives me a very smooth wash. Now I want a thicker application of paint on this side to make it dark, right? But if I take more darker color here and mix it here, that's what you tend to do. Let's say you think you need a little more blue on the shades, so you would take a little bit of blue from here, and then you would make it a blue color, mix it with this paint, and then you try to do this. It looks nice on the first application, but you soon see that it actually is quite dilute when it dries. Okay, let's wait for it. I mean, it looks nice. I just want to make sure that you see that it actually dries pretty light. And yeah, one more thing is that the paper here was already wet, and when you applied paint onto the wet paper, it spreads. Okay, I will get a blow dryer to dry it so that the video is fast. It has lost its brightness. That's because the paint was still you know very dilute. Now I'm free to apply a patch of darker color. Like I can take this blue here, mix it with my green, and this time I need this level of darkness, right? So I would apply it with a thicker application with much less water. So here you can see that the amount of water here is much lesser, and it's easy to see if I sort of tilt my palette and use tilting to your advantage. If I tilt, see, this one flows down, this one doesn't, so that means this has much less water. I can take a little more paint and make it more thick and viscous, and yeah, so this is much more thicker. I would go a little more thick, and you can actually play with it. You can get different levels of thickness in the paint. And now I'll go over this. And one good thing about watercolor is that it is a transparent medium, which means that whatever you did in the bottom is also visible through the top layers. Okay, so I'm going here, make it thicker, and I can make I'll make this look like another separate bush that forms here, and I would apply it here, and it can go here, and then something like here that also borders this. So the bottom there is always like dark paint, and of course, because wet paper actually spreads the paint, I can take some of my wet brush and actually, touch it on these edges so that the paint just spreads out and doesn't just form a, yeah, something like that. And then there are two layers that we have applied. We can wait for it to dry and go for a third very dark layer, and then we will do the stem. Okay, and the very dark layer would mean there are three levels of colors to this. Okay, I'll quickly try this so that we don't want the spreading to happen, we want sharp edges. Now I'm going to take paint straight from the tube that was here, like literally the most viscous, and I'm also dabbing my brush onto the sponge, so I get this color. This is really thick, it's spread out very nicely. And I'll take a little more of this blue, of this green, and I get a darker color. And just to mute it down a little bit, I'll touch a little bit of brown onto this. Don't worry about what these browns are at this stage. Okay, so it's a very thick color, and I can go in and make these spots like really dark by dabbing them, so it looks like this is a deep corner in the tree, this is another deep corner in the tree, and these are of course very deep. And I won't overdo this very dark color, just a little bit, and somewhere deep here, there's something happening. Maybe this is like a deeper point. This can be a deep point here. That's it. Now, to make it a little more believable, I would want the tree trunk to also be quite dark. So we can do the same thing. We can think of two different applications for the tree trunk. So I'll go with a light color, okay, light color for the bark, which is a light brown. And I will take this, give a support here, like make it two branches here. And again, this was a very light color. So if you have a light color, you can imagine that you can always plan to go over it with a more thicker color, and the lighter color would not have much role to play later on. Okay, so you can be not worried so much about the light applications going into the wrong places initially. Sometimes it even helps, the little bit of green here actually help to give a greenish tone to the entire painting. Okay, and you know that you can always go back and then control it. So I can always go back and add one more branch here to look like it supports this, and then maybe like a branch that goes through this. And yeah, so this is like a lighter application. All right, but then the shadows are missing, so I'll let this light one dry. So it's very important that um, you dry your light applications initially fully. Now I want the shadows to show. So what I do is, now I take a thick paint here. See, I'm dabbing my brush, no water, just thick brown. Since blue is the shadowy color I'm using, I would use blue to mix up some dark colors with brown and other colors to finish the painting.